Let's start with something that, touches every single part of our lives. Money.
Right.
It's in every decision we make, the jobs we take, where we live, what we eat. And yet,
It's probably one of the most misunderstood forces on the planet.
absolutely, we spend so much time analyzing it, right?
Yeah.
We build these complex models, we calculate yields, we treat finance like it's a hard science.
Like it's physics.
Exactly, like
Yeah.
physics, as if there are these rigid, immutable laws, and if you just learn the formulas, you'll get the right answer.
But if that were true, if finance were really just about math and a high IQ, then, well, every single person with an MBA and a fancy spreadsheet would be wealthy.
And they're not.
Not even close. It's demonstrably not the case. The reality is that financial success is so much closer to a soft skill. It's guided by our behavior.
Our emotions, our history.
Deeply ingrained, often irrational behaviors that have almost nothing to do with the formula.
Okay, let's unpack this. This is what this deep dive is all about.
Yeah.
We're getting into the human side of wealth, of greed, and ultimately of happiness.
We want to show you that your mindset, things like your humility, your patience, your ability to just manage your own ego is far more important than your raw intelligence.
Or your knowledge of market history.
And this is so critical right now, especially as we're all navigating, 2024 and heading into 2025.
For sure. The volatility it's intense.
It's everywhere. High asset volatility, interest rates are shifting constantly. Technology is it's creating and destroying industries overnight.
And when the ground is shifting like that under your feet, the emotional stakes get so much higher.
That's exactly when you see really smart, really technically brilliant people start making what look like
Crazy financial choices.
completely crazy choices.
To really drive this point home, this contrast between being smart and actually being successful, there's this incredible real-life story we have to start with. The tale of two men, Richard and Ronald.
Right. So first you have Richard Fuscone. I mean, this guy was the absolute picture of traditional financial success.
Harvard-educated MBA.
Rose right to the top at Merrill Lynch. He was an executive, retired in his 40s. Everyone called him a business-savvy genius.
And he lived like one. He had this enormous, lavish estate in Greenwich, Connecticut.
The kind of place with a 6-car garage, manicured lawns. I think he even had an indoor swimming pool with a see-through cover so you could, dine on top of it?
Yeah, you could dance over the pool at parties. I mean,
Mhm.
he was the absolute pinnacle of sophisticated, intelligent finance.
Now contrast him with Ronald Reed.
A completely different world.
Totally. Ronald Reed was a working-class guy. He fixed cars at a gas station for 25 years.
And after that, he swept floors at J.C. Penney for another 17.
He bought a very modest 2-bedroom house when he was 38, paid $12,000 for it, lived there his whole life.
His main hobby was chopping firewood. No prestigious degree, no fancy career, and definitely no see-through pool cover.
But the ending of the story, that's where the behavior part really pays off.
It's incredible.
Ronald Reed died in 2014, and he left behind a fortune of around $8 million.
$8 million. And he quietly gave most of it to charity and his local library.
And in that very same year, Richard Fuscone's massive Greenwich mansion, it was sold in a foreclosure auction.
For a fraction of what it was worth.
75% less. He'd gone through bankruptcy.
So Fuscone, the Harvard MBA, the executive, he was ruined by debt, by this visible, flashy consumption and ambition that just outran his means.
And Reed, the humble janitor, he quietly built a multi-million-dollar fortune.
How?
Patience, thrift, decades of just consistent, low-key investing.
This contrast is the core truth we're exploring. Financial success is so much more about soft skills than it is about technical brilliance. I mean, you'd never hear about a janitor outperforming a nuclear engineer in physics, right?
Of course not.
But in money, in long-term investing, stories like this happen all the time, and that's why we need this deep dive.
Our mission here is to take these behavioral ideas and really make them actionable for you.
We're going to explore how your personal history shapes what you believe is possible with money. We'll look at the confusing power of compounding.
The dangers of comparing yourself to others.
And ultimately, why true wealth isn't about your net worth. It's about having control over your time.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with this foundational idea, and it's a big one. People do things with money that, from the outside, look completely crazy.
Right. They buy lottery tickets, they sell stocks at the bottom of a panic.
All sorts of things.
Yeah.
But the core insight of behavioral finance is that if you actually look at their personal history, No one is truly crazy.
Their decisions make perfect sense to them in that moment, given the unique set of experiences and emotions they're bringing to the table.
It's all about their personal sliver of life experience.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. Your life, my life. It's a tiny, tiny fraction of all recorded economic history.
Like 0.000000001% or something.
Something like that. But that tiny sliver, it emotionally informs about 80% of how you think money works.
It sets your expectations for what's normal, what's risky, what's possible.
Absolutely. You and I were shaped by different recessions, different bull markets. And those lived experiences are they're incredibly powerful. They're far more persuasive than any textbook.
That distinction between lived experience and just reading about something in a book is crucial. There's a great story about John F. Kennedy when he was running for president.
From one of America's wealthiest families, of course.
Right. And someone asked him what he remembered from the Great Depression. He was very candid. He said he had no firsthand knowledge of it.
He read about it at Harvard.
Meanwhile, his family's fortune actually grew. They were buying bigger houses, traveling more. They were completely shielded.
And that's a point we have to stress for you, the listener. You can study history, you can look at spreadsheets, you can review decades of data.
But you cannot recreate the feeling.
You can't. You can't recreate the genuine gut-wrenching fear and uncertainty that comes from actually living through an economic crisis.
Someone who saw their parents lose their home during a recession, their whole definition of safety is just fundamentally different.
Of course. And they simply can't understand why someone who didn't live through that might be so casual about taking on debt or risk in the market today. Their emotional guardrails are built differently.
And this isn't just a theory. We have a lot of data that shows how deeply these early experiences anchor us for life.
The National Bureau of Economic Research, these are the folks who officially date U.S. recessions, they dug into all this consumer finance data.
And what did they find?
A fascinating correlation. Your lifetime investment decisions are heavily, heavily anchored to the market and inflation you experienced in your teens and 20s.
So it's not about how smart you are. It's about the dumb luck of when you were born.
That's a huge part of it. It sets your financial default settings.
Let's make that concrete. Can you give us an example?
Sure. Let's compare two generations. If you were born in 1970, what did you see in your formative years?
A massive bull market.
A massive one. The S&P 500, which tracks the 500 largest U.S. companies, went up almost tenfold, even after inflation, during your teens and 20s.
So you have this deep subconscious belief that the stock market is a wealth-generating machine.
Exactly. Your emotional anchor makes you receptive to stocks, willing to tolerate the ups and downs.
Okay, now contrast that with someone born, say, 20 years earlier in 1950.
A totally different experience. Their teens and 20s were defined by a flat, sideways market, much more volatile, not much growth.
So their emotional anchor is caution. They see stocks as dangerous, stagnant maybe?
Right. And they're going to be far less likely to invest heavily in the market today, no matter how many rational arguments you throw at them. The first thing they saw shaped everything that came after.
And this applies to inflation too, which is so relevant right now.
It's a huge one. Imagine you were born in the late 1960s. You grew up watching prices basically triple.
The high inflation era of the 70s.
Right. That instills a deep, almost visceral distrust in the stability of the dollar. You saw your family's savings just get eaten away.
So you might see things like long-term bonds as just wealth incinerators.
Exactly, because you vividly remember that pain.
But someone born in 1990,
they've lived their entire adult life with low, stable inflation. For them, the bigger fear might actually be deflation.
So the idea of cash losing its value to hyperinflation it's just an abstract concept. It's not a real, tangible threat they've ever felt.
And this is why everyone today sort of feels like a newbie, especially when it comes to saving for retirement. It explains so much of what we call financial misbehavior.
Because the whole system is new.
The entire modern foundation of it. This idea that you, the individual, are responsible for saving and investing for your own dignified retirement. That's historically very, very young.
It's wild when you look at the timeline. Before World War II, most people they worked until they died.
Or their kids took care of them. The idea that everyone gets a retirement where they manage their own portfolio, that really didn't take hold until the 1980s.
Before that, it was all about pensions, right?
Very
defined benefit plans. The company took on all the risk.
All of it. Then came the shift, the 401k, which is now the backbone of American retirement.
Where the individual takes all the risk.
Right. That didn't even exist until 1978. The popular Roth IRA. That wasn't created until 1998.
So our main wealth-building tools are, what, barely 25 to 45 years old?
We are all, as a species, trying to adapt our ancient, fear-driven, emotional brains to this brand new, very complex financial system.
So we shouldn't be surprised that a lot of us are bad at it.
We're all just newbies, basically. We're navigating a new world using biases that were formed in totally different economic times.
Which brings us back to those seemingly crazy decisions like buying lottery tickets.
We have to respect the personal narrative that's driving that choice, even if it looks completely irrational on a spreadsheet.
And the numbers are staggering. Americans spend more on lottery tickets than on movies, video games, music, sports, and books combined.
And it's mostly people in lower income brackets. From a purely statistical view, it's a terrible financial decision. The expected return is awful.
Of course.
But for someone who feels like the odds of escaping poverty through a raise or savings plan are basically zero, buying that ticket isn't a math problem.
It's paying for the dream.
It's the only time they get to purchase the tangible feeling of possibility, the hope of getting the good life that they see others just taking for granted. You don't have to agree with it, but you have to understand that very few financial decisions are made with a spreadsheet.
They're made at the dinner table.
Or under stress, or on the commute home, where personal history and ego and pride and desperation are all scrambled together into a story that just works for them.
Okay, so if our behavior is so important, and it's largely set by our personal history, we have to talk about the huge forces that are completely outside of our control.
Luck and risk.
We tend to think of them as opposites, but really they're siblings.
Two sides of the exact same coin. They're just the reality that every single outcome in life is guided by forces other than your individual effort. Nothing is ever as good or as bad as it seems.
Because luck and risk are always distorting the story.
Always. The world is just far too complex to allow 100% of your actions to determine 100% of your outcomes, especially in finance.
The story of Bill Gates is a perfect example of this. I mean, his genius is undeniable.
Of course. But so is his luck.
In 1968, he was at Lakeside High School in Seattle. And by some complete, extraordinary stroke of luck, it was one of the only schools in the entire world
To have a computer, a teletype Model 30 hooked up to a mainframe.
Most universities didn't even have a system that advanced back then.
So Gates, at 13 years old, gets almost unlimited free access to a world-class computer. It launched his entire career. That's a 1 in a million kind of luck.
But then you have the flip side. Luck's dark reflection risk.
Right. Gates had a brilliant classmate he worked with, Ken Evans. They had the same talent, the same obsession, the same drive.
They were going to start a company together.
But before they could, Evans was killed in a mountaineering accident.
That's a 1 in a million risk.
The same improbable force, the same magnitude, just working in opposite directions on two equally talented people.
It's such a powerful and tragic example. And it brings up this problem of attribution, right? It's almost impossible to say how much of any success is due to skill versus pure luck.
But our brains hate that. We crave simple, clean stories.
Cause and effect.
Exactly. When we see someone else fail, the easy story is, well, you had a bad outcome, so you must have made a bad decision.
And that helps us sleep at night because it makes us feel like our own lives are neatly under our control.
Of course. But when we fail, we blame it on bad luck or external risk. The real challenge is to focus on your own effort and skill while still having a deep respect for the overwhelming role that chance plays in everything.
And this leads to a really important point. Studying the extreme examples, the billionaires, the spectacular failures, it's actually pretty dangerous for the average person.
It is, because extreme outcomes are almost always the product of extreme ends of luck or risk. The more extreme the outcome, the less likely you can apply its lessons to your own life.
Because the randomness factor is just too high.
Right. The actionable advice for you, the listener, comes from studying broad, common patterns of success and failure. You learn more by studying what worked for 10,000 people who had average luck, not what worked for one person who hit a 1 in a million lucky streak.
And looking at those broad patterns, you see this major psychological danger that often comes with wealth, even for people who are already successful.
The problem of never enough.
Why do people who are already rich take these ruinous risks?
It all comes down to defining what enough is. John Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, he used to tell this great story about Kurt Vonnegut and Joseph Heller.
The authors.
Right. They're at a party hosted by some billionaire hedge fund manager, and Vonnegut points out that their host made more money in a single day than Heller had earned from his masterpiece, Catch-22, in its entire history.
Wow.
And Heller's response was just immediate and profound. He said, yes, but I have something he will never have.
What was it?
Enough.
That concept.
Yeah.
That is a psychological offense against ruin. Knowing when to stop moving the goalposts?
We see this tragedy play out all the time in finance. Look at someone like Rajat Gupta. He was the CEO of McKinsey. He was reportedly worth $100 million in 2008.
Which is an insane amount of money. That could generate $5 million a year in passive income. Easily.
But $100 million wasn't enough for him. He wanted to be in the ultra-exclusive billionaire circle.
So he was on the board of Goldman Sachs, and he found out that Warren Buffett was about to make a huge investment in the bank during the crisis.
And he immediately called his hedge fund friend and tipped him off. That friend made $1 million instantly. And Gupta, he risked a celebrated career and $100 million for what?
For more.
For something he absolutely did not need. He threw everything away.
Bernie Madoff is an even scarier case, because he was already a legitimate, wild success.
For decades, he was a successful market maker. He was already worth hundreds of millions.
But his Ponzi scheme, which started small, blew up because he just couldn't stand not being at the very top.
Yeah.
He risked everything he had and needed for something he didn't have and didn't need.
And that's the subtle danger. The taste of having more money, more prestige, it increases your ambition faster than your satisfaction.
The goalpost just keeps moving. You take one step forward, it moves 2 steps ahead.
You feel like you're perpetually behind, and the only way to catch up to the new people you're comparing yourself to is to take on more and more risk.
And social comparison just fuels this relentlessly. You know, a junior analyst at a big firm might make a great salary, rich by any normal standard.
But they compare themselves to the senior partner making 10 times more.
And that senior partner compares themselves to the tech CEO making $50 million a year.
Who then looks at Jeff Bezos, whose net worth can go up by billions in a single day. The ceiling of social comparison is so high, no one will ever hit it.
The only way to win is to stop playing the game.
And accept that you might have enough, even if it's less than the people around you.
This feeds right into what we call the man in the car paradox.
Ah, yes. The illusion of richness.
People buy expensive things, a luxury car, a flashy watch, because they want to signal success and they want people to admire them.
But here's the paradox. When you see someone driving that fancy car, you rarely think, wow, that driver's so cool.
No, you think, wow, I would be so cool if I had that car.
The admiration you were trying to buy is focused entirely on the object, not on you. The things people buy to signal their wealth are actually a barrier to building real wealth.
Because there's a huge difference between being rich and being wealthy. Can you break that down for us?
For sure. Rich is a current income that's visible. It's the luxury car, the big house. It's easy to spot.
It's about spending.
Exactly. Wealth, on the other hand, is hidden. It's the financial assets that haven't been turned into stuff you can see. It's the money in your investment account.
It's the nice car you didn't buy.
Precisely. The only way to actually be wealthy is to actively choose not to spend the money you have. It requires a huge amount of self-control.
It's like exercise, isn't it? You go for a run, you feel like you've earned a treat.
And you end up eating a donut that has twice the calories you just burned. Wealth is consistently turning down that treat meal, creating that invisible gap between what you could do and what you strategically choose not to do.
All right, let's shift from those psychological traps to the actual engine that drives wealth over time, compounding.
The most powerful force in finance, and also one of the most counterintuitive.
Our brains are just not built for it. We think in straight lines, linearly. We have a really hard time grasping exponential growth.
It's why the Ice Age is such a perfect analogy. You think, what causes an Ice Age? You probably think it's brutally cold winters.
Right, makes sense.
But that's not it. It's caused by summers that are just a little bit cooler than average, so they don't quite melt the previous winter's snow.
So that little unmelted layer just stays there.
And the next year, another small layer is added on top. And that tiny, subtle change over centuries, it compounds into a continental ice sheet that's miles thick. It literally reshapes the planet.
And that slow, subtle consistency, that's everything in finance.
Look at Warren Buffett. His real secret isn't his average annual return. Other great investors have actually beaten him on that metric in certain years.
His secret is his longevity.
Unparalleled longevity. He started investing as a teenager and just kept compounding uninterrupted for 80 years. His net worth is something like $84.5 billion.
Okay, but here's the crazy stat.
Only 11.9 million of that came from the returns he made between ages 10 and 65.
Wait, say that again.
Basically, 99.9% of his entire fortune was earned after he qualified for Social Security.
That's just mind-blowing.
His skill is investing, yes, but his secret superpower is time, allowing that compounding to just run wild on a massive base without interruption.
That's why getting impatient is so destructive. We try to force things, we try to get rich quick.
We take on too much risk because we want linear growth now, when the math says the best thing to do is often just to shut up and wait.
The goal isn't the highest possible return. It's the most consistent return you can get for the longest possible time.
And that patience is directly tied to your ability to survive the downturns.
Which brings up a key point. Getting wealthy and staying wealthy are two completely different skills.
Totally different. Getting money often requires taking risks, being optimistic, putting yourself out there.
But keeping money
Requires the exact opposite. Humility, paranoia, and a healthy fear that what you've earned can be taken away in an instant.
Think about the stories from the 1929 crash. Jesse Livermore was this brilliant trader. He was great at timing the market, great at being aggressive,
He was excellent at getting wealthy.
but he was terrible at staying wealthy. He got wiped out multiple times and eventually took his own life. He was all offense, no defense.
So survival becomes the single most important word in finance. You have to survive long enough for the long-term tailwinds of capitalism to work for you.
And capitalism is brutal. Studies show something like 40% of all public companies eventually lose almost all of their value.
It's hard and unforgiving. But the ones who survive, who just stick around, they're the ones who reap the compounding benefits that are created from the failures of others.
So how do you build a mindset for survival?
We call it a barbelled personality.
A what?
A barbelled personality. On one end of the barbell, you have to be optimistic about the long term. 170 years of GDP growth, despite wars, pandemics, 33 recessions. We generally figure things out.
So you're optimistic about the market over decades.
But on the other end of the barbell, you have to be paranoid about the short term. You have to constantly ask, what could happen that would knock me out of the game?
What does that look like in practice?
It means extreme safety on one end, a large cash reserve, zero ruinous debt, especially leverage, and on the other end, extreme aggression, a long-term portfolio of diversified, high-growth stocks that you basically never plan to sell.
So you're defending against the short-term surprises while maximizing the long-term compounding.
Exactly. And this connects to this other really powerful idea in investing. Tails, you win. Meaning that since most of the returns in any portfolio are driven by a few massive outliers, you can actually be wrong most of the time and still make a fortune.
As long as you catch one or two of those huge winners.
The data on this is just striking. Look at venture capital. One study found that a staggering 65% of all venture investments lose money.
65%.
But just 1% of those investments returned 20 times their money or more. And that tiny handful of massive successes generated almost all of the industry's profits.
And that pattern holds true everywhere, right? Not just in startups.
It's in public markets. It's in art collecting.
Yeah.
The famous collector Heinz Bergeron built a billion-dollar collection. He didn't pick a winner every time. He bought tons of art, and a tiny subset, his Picassos, basically accounted for almost all the returns.
So what's the lesson for the average investor?
It's that you have to be okay with being wrong a lot. You have to tolerate a constant stream of mediocre or even bad investments, because the handful of huge winners pays for everything else. When one of your stocks fails, you can't overreact.
Your job is just to make sure you're still in the game when one of those long-tail successes finally shows up.
And your success is determined not by how you act in the quiet years, but how you act during those few months of absolute terror when everyone else is hitting the sell button.
Okay, so if we accept that survival is the key that unlocks compounding, we have to ask the bigger question. What is all this money for?
Why are we even doing this?
And we've said it before, but the ultimate goal, the highest dividend that money pays, is freedom.
It's the ability to control your time.
And that's the metric that you just can't put on a spreadsheet.
You can't. The highest form of wealth is waking up in the morning and saying, I can do whatever I want today. Or, maybe even more powerfully, I don't have to do what I don't want to do.
The value of that is, it's incalculable. And because we can't measure it like an interest rate, we tend to overlook it.
We chase the higher measurable return, and we sacrifice the immeasurable value of freedom.
This is backed up so powerfully by the wisdom of the elderly. When the gerontologist Carl Pillemer interviewed 1,000 older Americans about their biggest life lessons.
The findings were so simple and so profound.
Not a single person said that their happiness came from working hard to buy more stuff.
Not one said it came from being wealthier than their friends or choosing a job just for the high salary.
What do they value?
Quality friendships and unstructured time.
Yet our modern economy is almost perfectly designed to take away our control over our time.
The laptop is the portable factory. The email inbox is the production line that never stops.
Your workday never really ends, and we've used all this new wealth we've created to buy bigger houses and faster cars.
But we've given up control over our most precious asset, our own time.
Money should be a tool to buy flexibility. That's its real job.
That savings you have in the bank earning 0% interest. It might be generating an extraordinary return if it gives you the freedom to quit a toxic job.
Or to take a year off to learn something new.
Or to just wait patiently for a good investment opportunity when everyone else is desperate and forced to sell their assets cheap.
This focus on maximizing peace of mind, not just profit, brings us to our first really actionable philosophy, and that is to aim to be reasonable, not rational.
There's a huge difference. Academic finance is all about finding the mathematically rational, optimal strategy, the one that gives you the highest possible expected return on paper.
But real people who have to actually live with these decisions.
They want the strategy that helps them sleep well at night.
This is the famous story about Harry Markowitz. He's the Nobel laureate who basically invented modern portfolio theory, this super complex, aggressive way to optimize portfolios.
He literally wrote the book on it.
But for his own retirement, he chose a simple 50-50 split between stocks and bonds.
When someone asked him why he didn't use his own aggressive models, he said his goal was to minimize his future regret. He just wanted a portfolio that made him feel comfortable so he could sleep.
So he chose to be happy instead of being mathematically right.
And to get that freedom and that sleep, the first practical tool is to focus obsessively on your savings rate.
Not your income, not your investment returns, your savings rate.
Because that's the part you can actually control. You can't control what the market does next year, but you can control how much you set aside from your paycheck.
The efficiency analogy is perfect here. In the 70s, we had an oil crisis. How did we solve it?
We didn't just solve it by finding more oil. A huge part of the solution was building more energy-efficient cars and factories. We doubled our miles per gallon.
We grew our energy wealth by needing less energy.
And you grow your financial wealth fastest by needing less money to be happy.
Which means the most powerful financial move you can make is what you call goalpost control.
Getting the goalposts of your lifestyle desires to just stop moving. Ideally, you do this when you're young, before your income really takes off.
So if your expenses settle at $50,000 a year when you're making $70,000.
And then you get a raise to $150,000, but you keep living on that same $50,000.
Every single dollar of that raise goes straight to savings and independence.
You're choosing the invisible asset, which is wealth, over the visible one, which is richness.
So how do you actually do that? How do you resist the urge to upgrade your lifestyle?
Automation is your best friend. You set it up once, and it works forever.
So you route a fixed percentage of every paycheck, say 25 or 30%, directly into your investment accounts before you even see it.
Exactly. You can't spend what never hits your checking account. You just learn to live on what's left. It automatically prevents that lifestyle creep.
Okay, that leads to the second critical tool, building in a massive room for error.
A margin of safety. This isn't just a tactic, it's a core defense mechanism. Its purpose is survival.
It's not just about avoiding a loss you can see coming.
No, it's about surviving the surprises, the unknown unknowns that life is guaranteed to throw at you. A pandemic, a war, a personal health crisis.
These things happen way more often than we think. And a margin of safety is what ensures a setback doesn't become a catastrophe.
This is why so many people, myself included, will choose to pay off their mortgage early, even when the interest rate is super low.
On paper, it's an irrational financial move.
Totally irrational. You could earn more by investing that money. But the feeling of security and independence you get from eliminating that huge monthly bill, that feeling pays a dividend that no spreadsheet can measure. It buys you peace of mind.
And a big part of this room for error is just holding cash.
Even if it's earning 0%, cash is the oxygen of independence.
It ensures you're never a forced seller in a bad market.
And it gives you the power to be a buyer when everyone else is panicking and there are incredible bargains to be had.
And finally, we have to reframe how we think about volatility.
We have to stop seeing it as a fine and start seeing it as a fee.
What's the difference?
A fine is a penalty. It's punishment for doing something wrong. If you see a 30% market drop as a fine, you'll think, I made a mistake. I need to get out.
And you sell at the bottom. The worst possible move.
But a fee is just the price of admission. It's what you pay to get something good in return.
So you view that 30% drop as the necessary price you have to pay to get the good long-term returns from the market.
You see it as the cost of entry for compounding to do its magic. You know the price of admission is high, but you pay it willingly because the destination financial freedom is more than worth it.
So we've really established that financial outcomes are driven so much by the stories we tell ourselves, the narratives.
Absolutely. The story about housing prices always going up in 2007 versus the story of panic and fear in 2009. The narrative is everything, even when the underlying facts haven't changed that much.
And that power of narrative just gets amplified when there's a lot of uncertainty, like there is today.
When people are scared or overwhelmed, they will believe almost anything that promises them huge rewards or immediate relief.
It's why there's always a market for get-rich-quick schemes and endless confident market forecasts.
Even though the vast majority of professional investors can't even beat a simple index fund over time.
So the best defense is recognizing the limits of your own view. We all have this tiny sliver of experience, but we build a complete confident story around it to make sense of the world.
And when you blindly follow someone else thinking they have the complete map, that's how you walk straight into a speculative bubble.
Looking forward, in this hyper-connected world, just being smart isn't the advantage it used to be.
The talent pool is global, and so many technical skills are being automated away. The real competitive advantages are shifting to those soft skills we've been talking about.
Communication, empathy.
And most of all, flexibility, which is something you buy directly with a high savings rate and control over your time.
We have to accept that the world is and always will be surprising.
When you're surprised by a financial event, the lesson isn't, I'll never make that mistake again. The real lesson is, wow, the world is fundamentally hard to predict.
You have to respect the mess.
Exactly. So let's leave you with our 3 key takeaways from this deep dive. First, respect the mess. There is no single right answer in finance. There is only the answer that works for you and lets you sleep at night.
Second, worship room for error. Avoid ruin at all costs. Leverage is dangerous because it removes your margin of safety. And save money for things you can't possibly predict.
And third, define your game. Be so careful about taking financial cues from people who are playing a completely different game than you are.
The day trader bragging about his returns has a 2-month time horizon. If you're investing for the next 50 years, his advice is poison.
Focus on your own long game of survival, patience, and compounding.
We've learned that we're all just operating with an incomplete picture, and we fill in the gaps with these powerful stories. The biggest challenge isn't forecasting the next market crash.
It's accepting this inherent human frailty in yourself and in everyone else.
So as we wrap up, here's a final thought for you to consider.
What is one financial decision you make that seems completely irrational on paper, like keeping way too much cash or paying off your low-rate mortgage, but that pays you the highest possible dividend and peace of mind? And if you had to choose between the two, would you rather be happy or would you rather be mathematically right?